Well, greetings, amazing students. Welcome to this course. This course is titled Sci 320 Lifespan Development, and I will be your instructor for this semester for your course. My name is Dr. Antonio Mexico. Welcome you all. I am super excited for the opportunity that we are going to have to spend together this semester. If this is your first opportunity utilizing VoiceThread, please don't worry, it's fairly easy to learn. This will be the main format for our lectures for this course. I may also upload some Zoom videos for you that have been pre-recorded as well, but this will be our primary venue or avenue, if you will, to deliver course content. You'll notice that as you move through each slide, there will be a comment. You'll see my little icon for me next to the slides when I've made a comment as we're moving through the lecture, and you'll just follow along in the lecture as we continue. So it is customary for me to introduce myself, and so what I want to do is share a little bit about myself professionally and personally, so you kind of get an opportunity to learn a little bit about me, okay? So professionally, for the past 15 years, I've been working in the field of child welfare, juvenile justice, education, and mental health, okay? Now, primarily, what I've been doing is serving within a social work capacity as a social worker in these fields. And so the population that I have specifically been serving in my past 15 years of serving in this field have primarily been serving at-risk youth and their families, mostly children who have experienced high levels of abuse, trauma, and neglect. Okay, so within that, I have spent the past 15 years working in residential care, which some of you may have heard the term group home utilized in the past for group care for children who were removed from their homes, from their biological families. So I've served in residential care. I provided case management, I provided counseling and psychoeducational groups, substance dependency courses for children, particularly high school age young adults, conflict resolution, grief and loss groups for children who have lost someone very close to them. I've also provided wraparound services, family advocacy, and support services. Now, in that time, I have served in 3 primary counties throughout Southern California, Orange County, San Bernardino, as well as Riverside counties is where I've done the majority of my casework. And the populations in which I've come to serve over the past 15 years have particularly been individuals of low socioeconomic status, immigrant families, okay, particularly out in the desert, Indio, Coachella, Mecca, those areas of the county, including Blythe. Gang youth in particular within Santa Ana, which also includes individuals, kiddos, who are incarcerated and serving sentences in juvenile hall. To this day, I still actually volunteer time in juvenile hall, leading Bible studies for our young men and women who are serving sentences in San Bernardino's correctional facilities. Black and Hispanic populations have been an area of focus in my career. Also working with kiddos with chronic mental health conditions, foster youth, families who are geographically isolated, so meaning that they live far away from urban settings and therefore resources are not abundant for them or their families, and other marginalized populations. And so I also currently participate in state level groups for child welfare policy. I advocate for policy changes and revision at the state level. And so my work takes me up to Sacramento quite a bit from time to time. If there is a reason why I'm moving a class around or adjusting it, maybe switching it to Blackboard, I truly apologize, but please understand that's part of the reason why I am doing that. Sometimes I do need to travel up to Sacramento frequently. Okay. Okay, I know some of you are thinking to yourself, Dr. Mexico, thank you so much for the boring introduction. Could have done without all that, and for that I apologize, but I also want to demonstrate to you where my experience, application, and expertise is coming from as we spend this time together in our semester. Now, what you really want to see is what do I do outside of CBU when I am not teaching classes? Well, here are a few things that are personal about me that I thought I would share with you. First and foremost, in the center here, this is me and my family. So that is me, obviously. This is my wife and my daughter, who in this picture is 10 years old. She's currently 10 right now as well. It's just us, and we love doing some of the following things here. So here are some of my interests. Let's see. So Dodgers. I am a Dodger fan. Let's start with that. If you're an Angels fan, I won't take that personal. We'll let that slide. If you're a Yankees fan, it's getting a little more difficult for me, but I will hang in there with y'all. And I got to say, at this point, if you're a Boston fan, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. I apologize. But all joking aside, I am a Dodgers fan. I've been a Dodger fan my entire life. Over here on the right is my English Bulldog. So we are Bulldog. Well, we're dog lovers in general. All of our dogs come as rescues. And so we never buy from breeders or anything like that. But this particular dog is Rosie. This is Rosie right here, English Bulldog. I am a huge fan of English Bulldogs, and she came to us as a rescue. Rosie is a beast, an absolute beast. She chews everything in sight, literally everything. Funny story, I have a brand new vehicle that I had owned for a total of 3 months, had maybe 3,000 miles on it, and I parked it in the garage, had my dog in there one day because it was raining. When I came back to the garage, I discovered that she had chewed the entire front bumper of my vehicle in a brand new vehicle. And so that is Rosie. Some of you may say, how do I hold on to a dog like that? Well, it's all right here. How do you say no to a face like that? So that's Rosie. I am a fan of comic books, in particular. Marvel is one of those. I also love DC, but the Avengers in particular I think are pretty amazing. I am also a huge Star Wars fan, particularly the Millennium Falcon. And so you will see references to Star Wars and the Millennium Falcon throughout our time together this semester. I've come up with some pretty cool analogies that we can utilize in that arena. So I am a Star Wars junkie, and as a result, my daughter is too, and she's also into comic books. I think this is a cool time to be a kid when all of this can come to life. And finally, I love tacos. You know what? I love food. Actually, what I do love is just eating. And so I love eating. I love cooking. Those are two things that I do. My family and I would love trying new recipes and going out to places to eat and things like that. So those are just a little bit of fun facts about me. So you have a little background of who I am this semester. Okay, throughout the term, what I will be doing is utilizing a little bit of mixed media in our lessons because I know that you would rather me not talk the entire time. And so I engage us in content that I believe is relevant to our discussions. I use content that will help continue to further our understanding of some of the concepts that I'm discussing in class. In particular, sometimes what I like to do is provide inspirational content, things that just make you think and ponder some of the concepts we're discussing in class. One of the things I'm going to promise you is whatever I discuss in a theoretical context, anytime I'm giving you theory, I'm going to break it down into what it actually looks like in the real world. I think that's really important to understand because sometimes in the field of academia, we talk about theoretical orientations as if they are some lofty example of something that's very difficult, all right, to break down into everyday language. And so what I promise you is I will do that. Now, if you recall in the last couple of slides, I said that I am a social worker. And so what I've been doing for the past 15 years is applying my expertise in the field of social work. But what I've done is applied that to kiddos in families who have needed help, who have gone through very difficult times. And so the focus of my career has been particularly in social work, serving children and families. It has not been easy for the past 15 years, but I can honestly tell you this, that I have 100% loved serving as a social worker throughout my career. I wouldn't want to do anything else, to be honest with you. And so what I want to do is share with you a video, an inspirational video just talking about a little bit about what social work is. Now, some of you are saying, you've heard of social work before, but I realize that social work does come with some negative connotations. Most often than not, people believe that, some social workers are only baby snatchers that take kids from the home. Some people believe that social workers are always stressed out, underpaid, right, burnt out, jaded by society and reality. And I can certainly say that at points I've met social workers that have been that way. But I've also met amazing social workers who have transformed the lives of children and families. So some of you may be saying, well, what does social work have to do with lifespan development? Why? Why should we even bother watching this video? Well, there's a couple of good reasons for that. One is, no matter what you're doing, related to social work or any other helping profession, okay, lifespan development is going to come into play. My hope for you is at the end of this term, I would have opened your eyes to the relevance of this course, not only from a basic psychological standpoint of understanding lifespan development, how we develop as human beings, but in particular, what that means for you in your future career and your obligation as being a good moral human being. What sort of legacy do you want to leave behind in the world, all right, after you are done? Lifespan development is directly correlated to that. So enough of me talking. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. After we're done with this slide, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and click over to the next slide and watch this video of a testimony in spoken word from a social worker who has spent very similar path in his career to me. And I'd like for you to hear the passion and the focus that this individual puts on social work and serving others, because I believe that this gentleman's passion closely aligns with my heart. So I wanted to extend a little of my heart to you. After we're done with the slide and you've watched the video, then we will continue on to the next slide and you hear a few comments that I make about the video. Now, for some reason, if you click on the next slide and the video doesn't load or it doesn't play, don't worry. I've also included a link to the video on Blackboard, and so you can access the video directly from there and then just come back to the VoiceThread recording, okay? Thank you so much. Go ahead and check out that next slide.
When I tell people what I do for a living, they often respond by saying things like, "Bless your soul, that must be difficult." And my all-time favorite, "It's so nice to see someone not working for the money." I'm a social worker. I tend to the wounds of people crucified to circumstance, carry hope and Band-Aids in my briefcase, share my own scars for street cred. I work with kids who see their probation officers more than their fathers. They wear sagging pants in their parents' mistakes, introduce themselves as accidents waiting to happen. They are a Hollywood casting director's wet dream. Tattooed with the temper, do-rag D-boys, boys in the hood, mi vida loca. They speak in sign language because they have been taught they are voiceless. Marginalization is the chip on their shoulder. It is so heavy they walk with the limp, pass it off as swag. Their fingers, more familiar with pipes than pencils. Eye-smoked clothes paint their worldview the color of devils as they search for God or anyone else they can just look up to. Each one has a story. Emilio wants to change, so he keeps a lucky penny in his pants pocket along with the quarter I gave him to call with whenever he is in need. In the desperation of his 15-year-old eyes, I see more potential than an idea Rivera never manifested on a canvas. He makes the city his, scribes pieces of his soul into windows, not knowing his pain is as transparent as the glass, sprays a masked moniker underneath street lamps, so he always shines brighter than the darkness of his insecurities. He left his self-esteem next to a cigarette butt at the bottom of a bottle bought by relatives who see no problem feeding fires. He screams in spontaneous combustion but believes nobody's listening, so he commits another crime. He likes going to court because there, at least he knows someone is paying attention to his sentences. I am his social worker attempting to make sense of his syntax. He didn't fall through the cracks, they swallowed him. I've seen it happen in broad daylight. Sun turning the other cheek, cowering behind the clouds, concrete quicksand traps youth like Venus fly. Homies who claim to have backs, front, offering no help, and so many of our kids are sinking. Emilio asks me for direction, but there's only one way to go from where he is. I show him his heartbeat's his compass. We look at the scars on his psyche. I ask if he's ready to replace them with dirt underneath his fingernails. He asks me how he is supposed to escape the sand. I remind him he cannot ask for one to guide his footsteps if he's not willing to move his feet first. I speak in cliches, talk of butterflies and phoenixes and of hip-hop and so many ugly things that have bloomed into beauty. I speak in truths. I tell him I don't know if things will be okay. I show him statistics are stalking him in prisons, plan housewarming parties. I tell him the streets, they don't change, but I know that people do. Hope is not a helium-filled balloon that has slipped from our fingertips. We do not have to watch potential float away. I am a social worker. I work with kids who learn to spell stigma before their first names, but each one is an artist learning to draw their own conclusions. Their pencils are heavy burdens built without a erasers on purpose because sometimes the best thing you can do is not go back. I am a social worker, and no, I don't do it for the money. I do it simply because I still believe in people, and I really hope that you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and all of you still do too.
Okay, I hope you found the video inspiring as I did, and I hope you see the heart and the passion that comes through in serving others. I always believe that the work that we choose to do should not only be considered a job, but a calling for us. Our work must be something that we feel that we would be doing regardless if we received a paycheck or not. That is the way that I feel about social work. My hope for you at the end of this course is that you would have selected perhaps a helping profession, any helping profession, where you can go out and make a difference in the lives of individuals that you serve throughout your career and your time on this earth. Now, my personal hope for you is maybe you will also consider social work as a capacity of doing that. But if you are choosing any career where you want to go out and make this world a better place by healing individuals who have been hurt, then I am all for that, in support of that. Okay, so that was just a little bit of my heart that I wanted to share with you. Now, some of you are saying, Dr. Meiko, that's all fantastic. Thank you for the ooey gooey, heart feeling stuff. What do I need to do in this class to pass, right? And I know some of you are saying pragmatically, what do I do? How do I get the A? Well, for all of you, here it is. Here's the slide you've been waiting for. What do you have to do this semester to pass Dr. Meiko's class? Here it is. And if you're worried about this, if you're feeling anxious, please do not. Please let that anxiety go. I promise you, my goal in this class, all right, is to be a blessing to you, not a burden. My goal is for you to complete this term successfully, for you to be able to have a foundation of the content that I'm teaching in this course. But more importantly, what I want you to do is grow and develop as human beings. And so, in terms of points, here's what we've got. 1,000 course points earns the A, all right, in my class. Now, what I'm doing is, if you notice, we don't have a midterm. We do not have a midterm. Let me say that again. And we do not have a final for this course. I hope that alleviates some of your concerns. What you are going to do is have the opportunity each week to chip away at your grade. If you notice, the large bulk of your grade is right here. 800 points dedicated to this course, broken up into 8 exams worth 100 points each. If you are worried about the exams, please do not worry. They are open book, open recording. You have 3 chances to take the exam, and I take the highest score. Like I said, I want you to learn in this class. I don't want you to worry about passing. What I want you to do is dedicate yourself to learning the content, all right, so that when you step out of this classroom, you will have a good understanding of what we're discussing in this term. So the bulk of your grade comes from these exams. Now, what we're going to do is you're going to have the opportunity to interview 2 individuals who are aging adults, okay? The category for that will be individuals who are 65 and older. We'll talk about that later. Each of those interviews are worth 50 points, totaling 100. So there's 900 right there. Some of you are asking, why would I want to interview someone that is an older adult? Well, because we're talking about lifespan development. And some of the best way that we can understand and learn about ourselves is to talk to our future selves. And that's individuals who have lived their lives longer than ours. And so I'm going to talk about the guidelines for that later, but I just want to share that with you. And then finally, you're going to have your final reflection paper. This counts as your final exam for the course here. This is a transformative learning reflection paper. And what this is going to do is summarize for me. You're going to explain to me what it is that you've learned throughout this course that is relevant to your everyday lives. I promise you, the content that I give you will be relevant, and you will be able to make connections regarding this course to your everyday lives and hopefully to future careers that you choose. And so that is the sum of our work together. You're going to have an opportunity each week to engage in the content, all right, and to demonstrate your learning here. Now, the other point that I'm going to make is that when we have lectures recorded online, all right, one of the things that I will do is provide a short quiz. Now, that short quiz is not worth any points. That's why it's not listed on here. It's worth attendance, okay? And I want you to just pay really close attention when we get to the attendance portion of the course so that you can understand how attendance ties into your grade. But you needn't worry about those. I make those very easy, and basically I'm just looking for evidence that you have engaged in the content and you've watched the lectures that we've recorded here. But your graded points are here for a total of 1,000 points, okay? Now, I always put this here: additional assignments at any time may be provided at the discretion of the professor. That is true. However, I just want you to know, some of you may ask the question, do I tend to change the syllabus or revise it frequently? And the answer to that is no. I really try to roll with the syllabus that we have when I place this and post this on Blackboard. But I always reserve this in case we do run into any obstacles, in case life changes. I may shake things up in the middle of the course, but please understand that usually when I shake things up, it is to your benefit and not to mine, which means I'm not going to slam you with a bunch of papers or points mandatory in order to pass. Usually I'm being flexible because something has happened over the course of the semester where we need to apply some flexibility. So like I said, if you're worried about this course, if you have anxiety, please do not. I'm going to make sure that we all get through this course successfully. We have fun learning and we learn a lot while doing it, okay? Okay, we're not going to take very long on these slides here, just a couple of guidelines and explanations on what to expect for this semester. So when we are meeting live and in person during our live class structures, we will follow the same format for every single class. And so one thing I can promise you in my classes, you will always know what to expect. We're going to follow the same structure for every class, and the content will change obviously as we move through the course. So I'm always going to check in with y'all, okay? During the course, just to see how you're doing when we meet live. I have a fun activity that we'll do depending on class size for that, and so we'll do that. I will take an opportunity to lecture, but always know that in the lecture, what I'm going to also do is blend us from time to time with some fun activities, some course discussion, some videos, and things like that. There will be opportunities for you to engage in what we refer to as discourse or discussion, all right, in class. We're always going to do that, okay? Now, one of the things that we're also going to do is we'll always cover, when I'm live with you, I will also go through Blackboard and review with you what to expect next. And so I'll bring Blackboard up, we'll go over that, and we'll see what you have next, so there's never any surprises. Now, when there's pre-recorded content, what I'm going to do is refer you back to Blackboard, and I will set up some announcements for you to be very clear in what you can expect. And so you'll also notice the syllabus very clearly notes all the deadlines, and so I don't want you to have to wonder or guess or worry about any of that. At time to time, I will ask us to do some takeaways. I'm going to ask you what was something that you took from that particular lesson that you might share or remember with others, just to see what it is you're absorbing from the course. We will always end every time with centering. Centering is an activity that we're going to do. If you haven't heard of it, please don't worry. I will make sure that you know about it. At the end of every lesson, we will take an opportunity to center. That is going to be part of our faith-based integration, our spiritual integration, all right, into the course. And I think that you'll find it useful not only in your academic life, but in your personal lives as well. And from time to time, I'm going to actually ask you for feedback. And don't worry, the feedback will be voluntary. You don't have to offer the feedback, and the feedback will also be anonymous. And so you won't have your name tied to it. But what I do is I take your feedback seriously, and as we move through the course, I seek your feedback so that if there's anything that we need to adjust in order to make the most of our time together, I am happy to do that so that you get the most from your learning opportunity in this course, okay? So I'll be asking for your feedback from time to time in a short, brief form. You won't put your name on it. It's not mandatory, but if you're willing to help me out with providing me feedback, I would very much appreciate it. All right, really quickly now. So this course, okay, is designed to do a couple of things. One is to introduce you to health professions. What I mean by that is mental health professions, as well as other helping professions or human services. The idea behind this is we're going to talk about lifespan development. We're going to talk about it in the notion of its basic psychological history, right? But we're also going to talk about the science and systems of psychology. This is what we are going to be doing. Like I said before, though, it would be it is part of my responsibility. It would be part of a failure on my part if I didn't apply these concepts to the real world for you. And so what we're going to do is explore, now what can you do with this? After you're done with your degree in psychology and after you've understood lifespan development a little better, how can you use this as a future career? So we'll talk about that. I'm going to ask you to think critically about psychological constructs, theories, and research. Like I said, critically, when you're thinking critically, means that you're beginning to ask questions. You're forming your own thoughts. You're beginning to wonder why something is and not just accept it as truth. So what I'm going to be doing is moving through some of the material here in engaging ways starting in the next lecture. And what we will do is we'll begin to think critically about what we're learning in this course. Obviously, we want to apply it to real life. I've told you that, and I'm going to give you examples from my real experiences as a social worker in my career where I've seen lifespan development intersect with the work that I have been doing. I promise you that. The other goal, and this is for me in this course, is for this course to be transformative. And you see, I use this word, I bolded out this word, transformative. And what does that mean? My hope for you is that you leave this course not only strengthened academically, but my hope for you is to also assist in your development cognitively, emotionally, and spiritually. And so what I hope for you is that you will have left this course with a different feeling, sentiment, or opinion about certain things that we cover related to lifespan development than maybe when you entered this course. That's my goal. All right. Now, I want to clarify, in this course, you don't get an A for agreeing with Dr. Mexico, right? But what I ask you to do is I ask you to begin to think critically about this material and I ask you to be open to the concepts that I'm going to give you. And the reason for that is because ultimately what I'm doing is preparing you, right, for these helping professions. The idea with this is if you apply your psychology degree, all right, to something after you've finished, you know, your career in undergrad, all right, I want to make sure that it's relevant. And in order for us to be amazing helping professionals, we have to be willing to be transformed, all right, from one point to the next throughout our education and our life experiences. And so that's my goal for you all during this course. Really quickly, final point related to these brief slides is I want to make sure, remember what I said about Star Wars? Well, there it is, right? Read the syllabus you must, as Yoda says, please, please, please read your syllabus. Now, I know that you all will be given a ton of syllabi because you all have other classes and other things going on in your life. So please, if you could do one thing for me, and this is a genuine plea from me to you, if you can at least review the syllabus for the following things. Attendance, please look at that closely. If you miss too many course sessions during this course, there's a couple of things that can happen. One is it could result in your grade being lowered for missing too many classes. But the other point to this is that the registrar can choose to actually decrease the amount of student loans or shift your status, all right, as a full-time student if you're missing too many classes. So please be sure to read that attendance piece closely, okay? Read my policy on late work. That would really help. Typically, I don't accept late work. That's just a general rule for me because it tends to pile up very quickly. And I teach a number of courses. If life circumstances happen, please communicate with me. I'm still a human being. My blanket answer isn't always no, but I need to be able to work that through with you. So please just let me know. And finally, assignments due. Please review the syllabus for the assignments due section because I really make an effort to make sure that that's very clear for you all and make it very easy for you to access. Okay? Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, just really quickly, I'm sure you've seen a slide similar to this a million times in your time at CBU, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but just a really quick summary of how we can engage and actively make the most of our time together. So what I like to do is start with some expectations, what things I might be expecting from you and what you can also expect from me. If you notice that there are some commonalities, right? So what I'm expecting from you is just to be respectful not only to me, but I'm talking about one another. When we have an opportunity to meet live, I'm going to engage us in discussion. It's completely okay and normal for individuals to not agree. That's absolutely fine. So what I'm asking for is not that you agree, but if you disagree, let's just do that respectfully, okay? Second thing is participation in the course. What I'm asking for is for you to participate, to go ahead and engage in the content that I'm giving you. I make sure that it's never unrealistic or overbearing. The content that I'm giving you But I'm also asking you just to maintain an openness to new ideas and thoughts and perceptions about the world. Part of my responsibility as a faculty is to push you in some ways to think and experience the world differently from how you might when you step out of campus into, the real world of the outside, right? And so what I'm asking you to do is you don't have to agree with the concepts that I'm giving you. I'm just asking you to be open to them, to allow the material to soak in, and then you develop your thoughts about them, okay? I'm asking you to adopt a question-oriented approach as opposed to an authoritative one. Now, what I mean by that is sometimes, especially in our lives right now throughout society, there's a lot of people that believe that the only way to have a discussion is to prove the other side wrong. And so what happens is when two people are talking, you'll see one person that's thinking, and it seems like they might be listening, but what they're really doing is just thinking of their comeback, right? And so what happens is that when they hear something that they don't understand, they may automatically leap to a judgment to say that it's wrong. Now, what I'm asking you to do in this course, if you hear something that might be different or unfamiliar or a different way of looking at the world, don't necessarily jump to the fact of saying that's wrong. Stop and say, can you tell me more about that? Can you explain that to me a little more? I might be struggling with that point a little bit. Can you share a little bit more about that? Can you give me an example? These are ways to adopt a question-oriented approach so that when we're exposed to content that is new to us, rather than judge it immediately and disqualify it as being wrong, it allows us to understand the perspective of others and make the most out of that time. Okay, so that's what that is. Now, in terms of what you can expect from me, I'm always going to make sure that I'm respectful to each of you. So you never have to worry about that. I'm going to make sure that I clearly communicate my expectations, my needs, deadlines, anything. All right, I will make sure. Now, if Dr. Mako makes a goof and for some reason I communicate something unclearly, like I said before, trust that I will apply flexibility on my side in some way to make your life easier as a result of my mistake, okay? So please know that. Please don't worry while you're in this course. Second thing is I'm going to always give you concrete, real-life examples of the material. My job is to make sure that this content comes alive and is relevant for you. So I will give you real examples of the 15 years that I've been serving children and families, and I have seen a lot in my career, so I have plenty to share with you, all right? My feedback to you will always be constructive and strength-based. I'm not here to cut you down, to tell you that you are awful, your paper was awful, or anything like that. My goal for you is to give you constructive feedback so that you get some real good ideas and thoughts coming back so that if you do need to improve in an assignment, you know how to do that and you know that it's not personal, okay? Transparency, who I am right now that I'm speaking in front of you is who I am all the time. I'm not anything different. And so I promise you, whatever I do, I will be transparent with you, right? Okay, I'll always share that. And finally, you can expect for me to challenge some of those conventional or dominant thoughts or ideas. Remember, I am a social worker. Social workers, our job is to advocate for those who cannot advocate for themselves, to serve those who have been hurting, to heal parts of the world that have been broken and are in pain. As a result of that, my job is to speak up sometimes, to bring highlights to what's painful for us to often look at as a society. And so what I'm going to do is respectfully, politely, always challenge our thoughts and ideas. Why do we believe something? Where is that coming from? All right, because I was unusually long on that slide, I promise I'll cut these short. Office hours, go ahead and send me a date or time when you want to meet, or just simply an email saying, Dr. Mako, can I meet with you for office hours? If you notice on the syllabi, it says by appointment, all right? So the reason for that is because I'm always shooting off to Sacramento, or I'm involved in meetings in the community, in addition to teaching a ton of classes. And so know, though, that you ultimately come first. So if you email me and you say, Dr. Mako, is there a time when we could connect, or can we connect before class or after? Please know that we're going to do that, and I'm happy to do that. When we meet live, I generally show up for class a little early, and I also stay a few minutes late. So if that's the case, you can always catch me before that too, all right? Now, you'll notice that some of your work for your class is due. I always give you an extended deadline. I give you till the end of Sunday evenings, 11:59 p.m. on Sunday in order to get your work done. So that's because, honestly, I'm not going to look at it on the weekend. I'm going to look at it Monday when I come in. So if you have a question related to the assignment or if there's anything that you need, please do me a favor and just know that I check my emails primarily between Mondays and Fridays. All right, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is when I'm looking at them. I really try to take the weekends to engage in some other projects that I'm doing on Saturdays. I do a lot of work in the community. I still do counseling, groups, Bible study, and things like that. And on Sunday, I really do my best to use that as a day of worship and to connect with my family and to spend time together with them. So I'm not saying that I won't respond outside of these hours. I may, but please just know that generally my response may be a little slower if you respond to me outside these hours, because I'm doing a lot of other things. So I also teach in our master's and doctoral level classes, and those are primarily in the evenings as well. So I may be in class after 6 p.m. Just in case, so you're aware. All right. Finally, I'm not going to cover this much, but what I'm just asking you to do is just stay in contact with me. Just let me know if something's going on in your personal life, in your professional life, if you're wrestling with something that is also sort of creating a challenge for you in this course. Let me know. Like I said before, I'm human. I'm a social worker, right? I don't want to sit here and flunk students. I want to be able to work with you. With that being said, I need to make sure, though, that the reason that you're struggling is something that we would consider valid in the academic world in order to assist you with. So whenever I can apply flexibility, just know, reach out to me, all right? And I'm willing to help you out. Now, in regards to this content here, one of the things that I'm going to do is I want to highlight a couple of things. I can assure you that in our course, in our time together, I will always create a safe environment for folks to share their opinion, whatever that is, all right, for us to discuss. What I cannot promise you is that our content will always be comfortable. Remember when I said that this is a transformative educational process? So what I want to do is establish what is the difference between comfort and safety, okay? And so we're going to talk about that. So the whole idea about this is I want to create an environment where we can learn, where we can grow together, where we can begin to understand the world around us so that when we step out into the real world and people disagree with us, we can truly engage in a conversation and not an argument, okay? And so safety is when someone says, I feel that in this space, I can ask questions without fear of judgment. I can voice my perspective and know that I will be validated for the fact that it is my truth. Others may challenge my ideas, but that challenge is in the spirit of greater shared understanding and growth, right? So, St. Francis had said, seek first to understand rather than to be understood, right? And that's the approach we're going to take. Now, comfort, it says, I feel that in this space, my reality will be agreed with, validated, and unchallenged. I don't have to explain myself or to be understood. I don't have to justify my perspective as everyone shares it. Here's the reality with creating a comfortable space. You can only create a comfortable space for a certain person or a very small group of individuals. The reality is not everyone is going to see things the same way, right? We're human beings. We're all different. We've all been raised different by different families. And so we are naturally going to see the world through different sets of eyes. That's okay. I'm going to even talk about scripture later that talks about the fact that that's okay. But you're also engaged in a higher education learning process. You are at a university. And part of my job as faculty is really to talk about this fact that it is responsible. We are responsible to challenge one another in order to grow, right? To justify our positions. And so what I'm going to do is we're not going to create an environment where we're going to argue. We're going to have a discussion. Like I said before, what we would do is engage in discourse. No one will ever be judged personally or called a horrible human being or belittled because of your personal opinion. But what I will do in the process of us sharing and talking with one another is explore together where some of our thoughts and beliefs come from so that other folks can understand and we can understand other folks better. Okay? Okay, finally, and I always apologize because these first classes, these first days together are always so awkward in the fact that we've got to go over all the syllabi and the technical stuff and all the attendance, and we very rarely get a chance to dive into the content on the first day. And so here's what I'm going to do is give you just a little bit of like a movie trailer teaser of what to expect. All right, as we move into our next lecture, and I promise you from here we'll hit the ground running and we'll get into the content following in the next lecture. So what is lifespan development, right? I've talked about the syllabus and I've talked about due dates and what to expect and all this good stuff. But what is it? What is it ultimately? So lifespan development is this field of study, all right, that examines patterns of growth, change, and stability and behavior that occur throughout our lifespan. All right, now that's a real technical way of saying, basically, who are we as human beings and why do we make the choices that we do? And so what we're going to do is in lifespan development, we are going to talk about a few things. We're going to address lifespan development from a psychological perspective. We're going to talk about the science of human behavior from psychology and what it states about lifespan development. But we're also going to talk about the biological aspect of this because the two are connected. As we age through life, as we get older, right, our bodies change. Our physiology, right, begins to change. And as a result of that, our mind is also impacted. Our feelings, our thoughts, our world perspectives are impacted by our development. And so we're going to talk about several aspects of how we age as adults throughout our lifespan and how we're impacted in multiple aspects of our identity, including our physiological makeup, our psychological makeup. We're going to talk about spirituality and other things, okay? So we're going to talk about that, and then it's going to also say, so how does lifespan development then impact the behaviors, the choices that we make every single day? All right, that's the goal. That's what we'll be talking about this term. Finally, one of the things that I'm going to do is I promised you that at the end of every term, every lesson, we're going to engage in a centering activity. This is the notion of faith integration in what we are going to be doing. I understand that this first attempt might feel a little odd for you, and that's okay. All right. Please know, though, that this is something that I have engaged in this practice of centering for quite a long time, a few years now. And this has done phenomenal things for my life, my spiritual development, my connection, my relationship with God, as well as with others. So centering, what is it, right? Some of you may have never heard of centering before, and that's absolutely okay. Here's what I can tell you. If you haven't heard of centering, but you've heard of meditation, then that's very similar to centering. If you've heard of mindfulness, sometimes you may have heard of that, especially in psychology classes. Mindfulness, well, that's similar to centering. Centering is the Christian version of meditating, okay, of meditating. And the practice of centering was first adopted by this gentleman named Brother Lawrence. Now, Brother Lawrence was a lay brother, all right, who lived in the 15th century, so a long time ago, who served in a Carmelite monastery in Paris. And so he was himself was not a monk, but he served with the monks during this time. Now, to be honest with you, Brother Lawrence, folks thought in the monastery that he was a little odd. They actually thought he was a little slow. And the reason for that was because Brother Lawrence tended to walk around very quiet and always engaged in this deep thought. Okay, he didn't really engage with others around the monastery. And so what happened is that Brother Lawrence became known throughout the church at the time for engaging in what he referred to as the perpetual practice of the presence of God. The perpetual practice of the presence of God. Doesn't that sound like a tongue twister, right? And so what that meant is that if you asked Brother Lawrence, when do you pray? Brother Lawrence would say, well, there's no start or end time to my prayer. I never start and I never stop. Brother Lawrence believed that when he engaged in the practice of the presence of God, what he believed is that God was perpetually active and present in our lives, that God never left us, and that God's presence was always next to us in every conversation, in every moment of every day. So people asked Brother Lawrence, where did you get this idea from? And he said, well, one day I was walking one early morning on just a morning walk, right at the transition of winter's end and spring's beginning. And he said, as I was walking on this path, I saw this frozen bush. All right, and on that bush was morning dew dripping in the sun, and there was one singular bud on this bush and frozen earth that was beginning to bloom. And so he said, how is it that one little bud of life could bloom from all of this frozenness, this emptiness, what appeared to be an endless dormant, sleep, right, or even death? And so Brother Lawrence came to interpret that moment as an inspirational moment where he realized that God was present in all things throughout every moment, even when we couldn't seem to find him. And so for Brother Lawrence, what he said was every moment of his day was a dedicated prayer to being closer to God, that he forever recognized that God was walking alongside him in every moment of his day. This became the practice of centering. Now, I know that that sounds really nice and really deep. The monks, they called him on it. They didn't believe him. And so they started to give him all the worst jobs that they could do in the monastery, right? So they started to ask him to clean up after them. He had to cook all their food. He had to clean all their food. He had to go and fetch the water from the well. He had to clean their robes and all of these things. And the worst jobs that they gave him, they discovered that Brother Lawrence went about his work in what they referred to as a constant state of grace. This constant connection, a peace, a submission to the fact that God was present with him. And so he never became frustrated or angry by the work that he was given to do. And so Brother Lawrence believed that centering really involved two things. Okay. What centering's goal was to do is sit quietly with an inner calmness for just a few minutes and to focus on one, God's presence with you in the present moment. Not the fact that God was present with you earlier in the day, and not even the fact that God will be present with you 10 minutes from now. The fact that God is sitting with you, present in the room alongside you right now. And finally, what Brother Lawrence said was if you can focus on a word or even a scripture verse that guides your adoration, your devotion, your praise in that moment, it's even better. All right. And so what we're going to do is this. What we're going to do is we're going to engage in centering at the end of each class. This really pushes the sort of spiritual reset button for all of us and really brings us to a place of calmness to just focus and push out everything else that we're worried about in the world. And so that's what we're going to do. And so when we center, we're not going to go on for minutes and hours. We're only going to take 2 minutes, all right, to clue into the fact that God is present in our lives right now. And so what we're going to do, and I'm sorry for some reason on VoiceThread, the word doesn't always show up here. I'm really sorry about that, but don't worry, I've got it in my head. All right, and so for our centering verse, all right, today, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on this scripture verse from Matthew. All right, this actually is my favorite scripture verse of all time for me personally. Are not two sparrows sold for a small coin? Yet not one of them falls to the ground without your Father's knowledge. Even all the hairs on your head have been counted. So do not be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Right? The word that's supposed to be here emerged but didn't is dignity. Dignity. Okay. So let's go ahead and practice our first centering for this term. In order to center, what you're going to do is go ahead and put your hands and feet in a nice comfortable position. Flat, maybe your palms on your knees or on your thighs, right? Your feet flat on the ground. And what you're going to do is you're going to push out all of those worries and concerns. Forget about what happened prior to coming into this lecture today. For a moment, forget. Allow yourself to not worry about what comes after. There is no before, there is no after. All there is this moment in where we're recognizing that God is present with us right now. Let's invite God into this space with us, right? Let's close our eyes. Let's take a nice deep breath. And let's just listen to the fact that God is with us. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep track of the time for 2 minutes. And during this time, if you start to feel any thoughts or concerns creep into your mind, simply acknowledge they're there and then push them back out and continue to recenter on this scripture verse and on this word dignity, okay? So what we're going to do is take a nice deep breath, close your eyes. I will keep track of the time and I'm going to return to us in 2 minutes. Okay, go ahead and take a nice deep breath. You can open your eyes and come on back. I know that that can seem a little difficult, even maybe even distracting at first, right? Some of you may have felt like a lot of those inner thoughts, that voice that you want to hear all the time that's telling you to worry or to think about something else can come in. I promise you that the more that you do this, the easier it will become. This is why monks can practice this all the time and end up centering, sometimes for hours, because they are able to clear their mind through this practice. Now, what I'm asking you to consider is that this has really been something for me that helps push the reset button and just put things in perspective for me. So if there's ever a meeting or something that you're worried about, you're going into a job interview or something tense, right? You can always stop and just center, even in your car, even just on your walk, and quietly ask God to say, I know that you're with me in this very moment. Can you please just speak to me, right? um, and sit in a quiet place, it can really help set the reset button. So I hope that this is helpful for you. I hope that maybe you'd be willing to give this a try even outside of class. Finally, at the end of every class, what I'm going to do is I'm going to always say thank you. So I want to say thank you for tuning into the content. Thank you for engaging in class. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm going to miss y'all. All right, and please know a couple of brief reminders that I'll always end with. Please be sure to check Blackboard for your assignments, for any announcements, anything that you're going to have due. Also, please know two more things. One, that you can email me with any questions, thoughts, concerns, if you need to meet, whatever the case is. All you have to do is shoot me an email. We will set up a time to meet, no problem whatsoever. And finally, always know that I pray for every single one of my students in the morning when I wake up. And so I want you to know that if you're still feeling anxious about this course, please try to let some of that go. It's going to be fine. We're going to get through it, and you are in my prayers. So thank you all so much, and I'll see you in the next lecture.